So I'll just say this. I think this notion of rethinking everything is the right thing. I think vendors are starting to realize that change is a constant for everyone, not just for customers, but for them. And Vinny, to your point, everything needs to reflect that: events, roadmap, product, engagement, everything, and that
But
includes.
John, don't you get the feeling that I don't think this vendor evolved in the last 3 years?
Yes and no. I've seen some product evolution. I haven't seen necessarily the deep rethinking that I think is imperative. And I think part of it is that a lot of vendors that I deal with are SaaS vendors who think they have a new model. But the fact is that the SaaS model has gotten old in the tooth too. You made an allusion to Zoho One and a whole different way of thinking about pricing and licensing. Well, guess what? That's next. Licensing and pricing is on the table, needing a deep rethink. And that is just as important as product to your so-called customer experience. Customer success is about changing the relationship between you and your customers. I think a lot of vendors have a ton of work to do there. But just specifically on events, since that's why you invited us here today. There was this point around it's great to see each other again. And look, it is. And things happen in person that don't happen virtually. But I don't think that's going to be enough. And I would not relax into this feeling that events are great because we see each other again and it's awesome. We need to rethink the format. We need to rethink what we're trying to accomplish. And we need to basically embrace a year-round model where we're engaging with people in a variety of different ways. That might include smaller regional events, which we haven't mentioned, that can be highly effective, where you invite, to Vinny's point, startups, CIOs, analysts who are local to that region to have think tank type conversations and whiteboard discussions and things like that. There's so much untapped opportunity here, and let's all embrace it and see. Like there were a lot of cynical stuff in this conversation because travel is hard and a lot of things seem cliched, but there's the art of the possible too. So let's embrace that also.
Ryan, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually still a real big fan of the big in-person event, and I'll tell you why. I was at one of the recent Oracle shows, and someone I hadn't seen in 20-something years comes running after me, spotted me in the crowd, comes up to talk to me and everything else. And that's just one example of dozens of these like serendipitous moments where there are people that I would not have had a way to connect with them in the virtual version of the show. I'm not going to go look at 100,000 attendees on some giant database list to see, do any of them correlate with who's in my contact database and have I talked with them in recent years. So I actually get a lot of value in going to these events. Yeah, I know I could be a hard piece of cheese and complain about a few things on them. And John's been at enough of these with me where he already knows what the early warning system detector is when Brian's about to go off on something. He already knows what that looks like.
Yeah.
But that aside, I don't want him to get rid of the event. I really don't. And there are just some aspects to the in-person deal that cannot be replicated, well, in the virtual world. That, I also believe the virtual world definitely has a place. And I liked where you guys were going earlier, Vinny, you and John, because y'all were talking about how you could cut this material up and make it in more smaller, digestible pieces, make it available on demand, give it a long, useful life and everything else. And I say amen to that. More than anything else, I want to see a show agenda that says, here's where, when and where it occurs, if you want to see it in person. And then here's a whole list of the alternative kind of ways that you can consume that content, either in real time or after the fact. I want it all. I want all of that kind
Absolutely.
of stuff. So I really do like the event. I don't care for flat meat sandwiches, but and no Dr. Pepper. Yeah, that kind of is a bummer. But I've gotten really good. I can find an In-N-Out burger or a Dr. Pepper just about everywhere I go. I can do that in a matter of minutes. So I'm okay. I don't need to worry about that. Guys.
Well, I'm going to make a plug for more virtual presentations and so on. I mean, the 700 sessions I've done, probably 50 countries, probably 30 industries. There is no way You know, I
Yep.
have to go to 20 events to be able to get that, right? So we've learned that Zoom and Teams, I don't like Teams as much, but Zoom certainly has made it so much easier to, present, to listen to people. Maybe not as a conversation medium, but certainly when they're trying to present something,
Yep.
it's just fine. But I'd like to do my 8-10 events a year. It's good to meet people. It's good to meet diverse people, right? And so diversity to me is key.
I don't think it's an either or. I
It is.
want to do them both. I'm going to definitely do them both. And I'll tell you guys, I made a commitment personally that I'm going to spend more time when I get to some unusual places and see the sights, basically.
Well, that's one reason I said I spend a day longer than average
Right.
in the past, right?
But beyond that, I still like going to, I like to go to new shows, new experiences, new places. I may be an older guy these days, but I still have the mind of a 17-year-old, and I still like all the fun and excitement of going to see all these other kind of things.
And John, the stockiness of a 12-year-old, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We age in interesting ways, don't we?
Guys, this has been fantastic. Brian, I think John said he prefers going to user conferences. What do you think? Analyst summits versus user events? Any preference?
I don't get as much G2 at the conference about the vendors' products, but I get to rub shoulders with customers and I learn a lot from them at the user conference. But the analyst event, oh yeah, I can get all drill down to as much as I wanted, all the product announcements, the financial underpinnings of the vendor, and I get a lot more access to the execs.
I personally prefer the combination of the two and rolled into one. But part of that is
Like
because
the day before
yeah,
okay, yeah.
Exactly. And part of it is Brian's kind of like tongue in cheek about the air travel. I haven't noticed customers like shying away from events because of air travel just yet. I think the bigger issue for customers next year is going to be event budgets affecting travel on a corporate basis. But for folks like us, travel is an issue, and the way vendors are approaching travel is unacceptable in the sense that they need to start spending more on travel to reduce the friction if they want us to hop on planes all the time. Because doing it all the time, that stuff Brian's showing, it's funny in slides. It's not that funny when you're doing it. And that's my issue with the analyst day format is if I spend a whole day of that to get one day of analyst stuff and then a whole day back, I'd rather be gone for the week, hang out with customers, do an analyst thing and do it all at once. But that's more just trying to balance the air travel friction with the actual meaty stuff of being in a location and getting something out of it. But
I don't disagree. I agree with John for the most part on that. My frustration, though, is to go to all the trouble to fly somewhere and then find out there's absolutely nothing newsworthy. That just torques me to no end, because there I really feel like I've wasted days of my life, and for what? Nothing. I don't need.
And Brian, this is where I think we need to lower our expectations of user events, right? Those are primarily for customers. So
Yeah.
we shouldn't be demanding time of the executives there. So it's a balancing act. We need to be a little more sensitive to that too.
Yeah.
Well, one of the major ERP vendors, for example, they've dealt with me enough over the years. They know things like they make sure I don't go to a jock keynote, because I once famously ripped them apart, because they had a sports figure up there telling this, John, you've got to give 125% if you're going to push it over the goal line. You can't be swinging for the fences. It was an hour and a half of sports cliches. That's a waste of my time, and that's what chaps me off.
Brian, they'd go out of the way to bring Dr. Pepper especially for you. You're spoiled.
I just want to clarify one thing, because I know, Vinny, we got to get to your slides. But Brian said I might have like had a higher grade for on the ground than him. Actually, don't. My higher grade was for hybrid. I have some big problems with on the ground events from a customer perspective, and my retired colleague Den Hallett, who loves to troll from the cheap seats with pungent comments, point believes that we can never solve this because he thinks that vendors and attendees are completely at cross purposes at events, and that the events can never be fixed. And I actually disagree. And the reason is that there is some alignment between vendors and customer attendees, which is better projects, better results, happy customers, sell more software. That is an alignment. The problem is there's a couple areas of tension as well. One is entertainment, which the vendor, to Brian's point around some of the dancing and sing along stuff, the vendor often prizes the entertainment of the conference a little more than the customer, but the customer does want some fun, like more than Brian. So the customer is probably going to enjoy a jock keynote more than Brian is. Let's just face it. But then where the misalignment really is using the event for messaging and branding purposes. And that's where customers and vendors are at odds. And that's Den Hallett's point. And the way that needs to get addressed first and foremost, in my view, is vendors need to start giving us all back time in the form of, don't make us fly across the country to sit through 3 hours of keynotes. I've been to events post-pandemic where 25% of the time was spent in keynotes. Now, by keynotes, I'm talking about what I call drop dead keynotes, where everything in the event stops except for the keynote. That is a very aggressive use of people's time, and that should be limited to shorter 1 hour keynotes. And there are ways that you can continue to get your messaging across, but in more specialized ways. One of the best examples was at the Sage conference, where they have the main keynote and then they roll into industry keynotes. Vinnie, you'll like this because you're into industry. So if you want the industry keynote, that's fine, you can go, but the event goes on. You don't have to stay hostage and sit around passively for 3 hours, which you could be doing from home on your live stream. It doesn't make any sense. So vendors do need to change how events are designed.
On the other hand, I like the meeting people that you would never meet before. So one of the good things about IFS was obviously they had the user conference, but Darren Roos had his board of directors there and happened to make Craig Conway hadn't seen in 20 plus years, right? They had customer advisory board, so there were senior executives who were there, right? A lot of partners. So it's kind of nice when you can have multiple events converge, gives us a chance to, meet new people.
Yeah, mixing.
I'm at the event. I'm at journalists from the automotive sector, journalists from the aerospace sector, and so on. It's kind of
absolutely
nice to not have run around with the same people, right? So
yeah, mixing things up and networking, that's a big part. Like when you break out what constitutes project success and customer success, it's education and it's network. And mixing it up is one of the best things you can do at these events. When you throw partners and customers and Brian Sommer in a room together, you're going to have interesting conversations.
I would leave Brian out.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing no one's had the courage to bring up, but I'll go there, is any show that gives a keynote slot to a sponsor gets an F right off the bat, because
Brian, they're subsidizing your airfare, so
I didn't fly all that way and give up all of my time to sit through and watch an infomercial. I won't watch them on late night TV at home, and I damn sure I'm not going to pay good money to go there and do it, and sit there while somebody's going to tell some terrible story. And the other one is the stupid scripted interview, either with the fireside chat with the CEO or the customer interview, and they're going like, so John, tell us why you chose the award-winning, industry-leading, top quadrant seeking product from our firm. Why did you choose that? And it's like, kill me now.
Brian, don't forget, after the answer comes, after I give you my answer, you say, that is amazing. That is fantastic. What a great answer.
You talked about, I was at an event where one of the partners actually had a script. He was asked a question and he actually read read on the panel from the script.
Yeah, that's
It-
bad.
It's really funny because I talk with event planners a lot about this because they want to entertain people. And I keep telling them, we have Game of Thrones at home. We don't need you to entertain us. Like what, and I say, what is entertainment in a B2B context? And I say, it's authenticity. It's real unscripted conversations. And I don't care with who, to Vinny's point, it could be with customers, it could be with partners. But if you're having real conversations about how we achieve success, where are our obstacles, what are the industry challenges we're all dealing with, people are going to listen. Entertainment's not that hard. It's just about getting real. Like we're attempting to do, I'd like to think right now. Like that's why people are tuning in. To Brian's point, they don't want sponsored crap, but they do want to learn. That's why they got on a plane. And this is not that hard, but we could spend a whole hour on how to do a better keynote. I think the real takeaway to me is get us in and out of the keynote hall in an hour. That's all you need for the day for keynote. And then if you want to do some optional smaller keynotes later in the day, fine, but free up customers to do what they want to do with these events. Don't hold them hostage sitting around for 2 or 3 hours. This is the biggest change that vendors need to make. Cool.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Vinny. Thanks,
See ya.
Brian.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Indeed.
Back at you, everybody on that. And anyway, safe travels, everybody.
Enjoyed it, peeps. Catch you later.